The day I learned how close betrayal can stand to brotherhood was the day my wrist cracked against cold tile and the room spun with pain. My name is Edrin Vale, and if this story speaks to you, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and leave a comment. Your support keeps these truths alive. I did not always know pain. I grew up in Alderbrook Quarter, where dust rose like incense and neighbors raised children together. I was born there, and so was my best friend Bramwell Ives. Our cradles stood in the same clinic room, our mothers smiling through sweat and hope. People said we would be inseparable. They were right. As boys, Bramwell and I ran errands, shared shoes, and learned to throw stones across the creek. He spoke first and loud. I listened and laughed. I admired him. He was quick with plans and loved to lead. I was slower, careful, and kind. Together, we felt complete. At night, elders told us stories about clean hands and straight paths. Those words shaped me. I want a life that did not hide. Bramwell nodded during those talks, but his eyes often drifted to the stars, counting who shone brightest. By 26, our dreams had shape. We still shared meals, jokes, and secrets. I trusted him without locks. I did not know that envy can grow quietly, like roots under a house, waiting for weight. Bramwell was born 2 months before me, and he wore that small space in time like a crown. He joked about it often, calling me little brother, even when we stood eye to eye, our shoulders level, our footsteps the same length. His words sounded playful, never sharp. I laughed easily and let him have the title. Peace mattered more to me than pride, and I believe jokes were harmless when spoken with a smile. In school, Bramwell liked to arrive first to answer questions, first to raise his hand, first to be noticed. When he succeeded, I cheered him on without envy. When I did better, he clapped the loudest, his hands striking together with confidence and cheer. I took that sound as joy. I believed it meant shared victory. I did not notice the pauses that followed, the slight tightening of his jaw, the breath he released a moment too late. At that age, I did not know that feelings could hide behind applause. We spoke often about rising together. We said we would share wins and losses equally, like brothers bound by more than blood. Those words felt strong when spoken aloud. They felt safe. I trusted them without question. Our community taught us loyalty early. Elders said, "Do not pull your brother down, even when you are tired of waiting." That saying lived in me. I believe Bramwell carried it too. I never thought to question his heart, because I never questioned mine. I did not know then that darkness can exist quietly, not as anger, but as comparison. And comparison, when left unchecked, can grow roots deeper than we imagine. One evening, when the sun leaned low and painted the creek in gold, Bramwell and I sat on a flat stone and spoke about the future. We were still boys, our feet dusty, our dreams taller than the trees around us. The water moved gently, as if listening. We promised something sacred. If one of us opened a door, the other would walk through later. No shortcuts, no harm, no pulling down. We would rise clean or not at all. That promise stayed with me through school stress, hunger days, and long walks home. When I was tempted to cut corners, I remembered the creek and the sound of water. When lies could help me move faster, I chose truth. When anger knocked loud, I answered with patience. I shaped my life around that promise. I spoke carefully. I worked honestly. I helped others even when it slowed me down. I thought Bramwell was doing the same. I never questioned him, because trust felt safer than doubt. Looking back, I see how promises can mean different things to different hearts. To me, it was a rule for living. To him, it may have been a tool for winning. At 26, a door opened for me in a way I never planned for and could not have forced. It did not arrive with celebration or loud approval. It came as a simple envelope, clean and unmarked, resting among ordinary mail. The paper inside carried careful words and steady lines. I read it once, then again, slower the second time, as if the meaning might change if I rushed. I needed to be sure my eyes were telling me the truth. The offer was real. A position at North Shore Meridian Group, a respected financial advisory organization in the United States. I had admired the firm from a distance, never imagining my name would be written beside theirs. My hands began to shake, not from pride, but from the weight of it. Fear and gratitude met in my chest, pressing together until I had to sit down. I knelt on the floor where I was. I prayed without rehearsed words. I thanked God for a favor I had not earned and asked for the strength to walk straight once the door opened. I did not ask to rise above anyone else. I did not ask to be noticed. I only asked to remain faithful to the path I had chosen long ago. As I prayed, the memory of the creek returned to me, the promise made as boys, the vow to rise clean or not at all. This felt like that promise breathing again. A door had opened, not pushed, not stolen, just opened. I folded the letter slowly and returned it to the envelope, as if it were something fragile. I smiled, not wide, but deep. Then I stood, already knowing who I would tell first. I showed Bramble the letter that same day. I did not wait. Joy feels heavier when carried alone, and he had always been the first place I took good news. His eyes moved quickly across the page, scanning every line, every name. Then he smiled wide and pulled me into a strong hug. "You deserve it," he said. His voice sounded steady and sure. I did not question it. I had no reason to. Trust does not look for cracks. We sat for hours talking, the letter between us like a shared victory. He asked how the interview went, what questions were asked, and how I answered them. He wanted to know who hired me, who led the team, and what the office felt like. Was it strict or warm? Competitive or calm? I answered freely, laughing at moments, replaying details I thought were harmless. Trust does not count costs. Trust assumes safety. As he listened, he nodded often. Sometimes he leaned forward, sometimes he smiled quietly, as if filing the information away. I mistook his attention for pride. I thought he was celebrating with me, the way brothers do. I felt proud too, not of myself alone, but of us. It felt like the future we talked about as boys was finally taking shape. One door had opened, and I believe another would follow soon after. When evening came, we parted with easy words and familiar warmth. His smile stayed with me as I walked home. That night, I replayed it as I drifted asleep, thinking of old promises and new beginnings. I did not see the shadow behind that smile. I did not know that some smiles are doors too, doors that open quietly, leading not forward but into dark rooms. In the days after I shared the news, Bramble's smile followed me like a shadow. It appeared in our calls, our short walks through the neighborhood, even in moments when we sat without speaking. At first, it comforted me. Familiar smiles feel safe. They belong to history, not danger. I had known that smile since childhood, and I trusted it without effort. But the questions returned, soft and casual, as if they had not already been asked. He wanted to know again who hired me, how I stood out among the other candidates, and what my role might grow into. He asked about the structure of the team, who held influence, and how decisions were made. He wanted names, titles, and quiet details. I answered freely, repeating myself without concern. I believed curiosity was natural. I thought he was proud. I thought he was planning his own path beside mine. Still, something shifted in small, uneasy ways. His laughter came a beat late, as if it had to travel through thought before reaching his mouth. His eyes lingered on my face longer than before, studying, measuring. When I spoke about work, he nodded, but his words grew fewer. The warmth that once filled our conversations thinned, like air at higher ground. I did not accuse him, not even in my heart. I told myself people change under pressure. I told myself stress can quiet joy. I chose grace over fear, patience over suspicion. Yet that smile, steady and carefully worn, began to feel practiced, not natural. Something restless lived behind it, something unnamed. I did not know then that lies rarely arrive loudly. They often come smiling, wearing the face you trust most, asking questions you are happy to answer. At North Shore Meridian Group, I stepped carefully, as if the floors themselves deserved respect. I arrived early, listened more than I spoke, and learned the rhythm of the place before trying to change anything. The organization valued discipline, trust, and quiet excellence. There was no room for noise or show. Results mattered, but so did character. I felt aligned with those values. I believed I fit well, or at least I was trying my best to. The work demanded precision. Numbers had to tell the truth. Reports had to be clean. Decisions were made slowly and documented fully. I welcomed the structure. It felt like a place where honesty could grow without being shouted. Each day, I left tired but grateful, confident that steady effort would speak for itself in time. My department head was Mr. Percival Huxley, a reserved man with a calm voice and a firm presence. He did not waste words, but when he spoke, people listened. His reputation carried weight across the organization. I respected him deeply, not because he was powerful, but because he was careful. He noticed details others missed and rewarded consistency more than charm. Weeks later, in a casual conversation, I mentioned Mr. Huxley's name to Bramwell. It was said without thought, like sharing weather. For a brief moment, his face flickered, something quick and unreadable, before settling back into ease. He told me Mr. Huxley was an old contact of his uncle, someone the family knew well. I smiled and called it a blessing. I believed connections could open doors gently and protect those who walked honestly. I did not imagine they could be turned into weapons. I did not know that Bramwell was already tracing a different path, one that did not lift us both, but quietly set me aside so he could stand alone. The changes were small at first, almost polite in how they arrived. Emails that once came quickly began to show up late, or not at all. Calendar invites disappeared without explanation. Meetings were moved, then held without me. I learned about decisions after they were already signed and sealed. When I walked into shared spaces, conversations paused. Not suddenly, but softly, like a radio turned down. Smiles faded into tight lines. I felt watched, measured, and quietly judged, as if something unseen had been written beside my name. Still, no one spoke directly to me. No accusation came. No complaint was raised. Only silence, thick, heavy, and confusing. It pressed against my thoughts and followed me home. I searched my memory again and again. I replayed emails, meetings, and words spoken. Had I sounded proud? Had I stepped out of line? Each review ended the same way. I found no wrongdoing. Yet the whispers grew. They were soft but steady, like water dripping through stone. I felt their weight without hearing their words. Soon, doors I once walked through freely began to shut, not with noise, but with quiet certainty. Opportunities one had been told to expect slipped away without explanation. Projects I had helped shape were reassigned to others. Meetings I used to attend appeared on calendars after they had already ended. Invitations vanished as if they had never been written. My desk, once a place of conversation and shared effort, became a space people passed by without slowing their steps. No one confronted me. No one accused me. That was the hardest part. Silence leaves room for doubt to grow. I began asking myself hard questions late into the night, replaying conversations, emails, and small moments that might have carried offense. Had I spoken too directly? Had I misunderstood a rule? Had I failed quietly without realizing it? Each question returned without an answer. I examined my work with care. I reread reports, checked figures, and reviewed timelines. Everything was accurate. Every task had been completed honestly and on time. There were no shortcuts, no hidden errors, no careless words. My record was clean, yet the distance around me continued to widen. The pain was real. It settled heavy in my chest and followed me into sleep, waking me before morning with the same unanswered thoughts. Still, I refused bitterness. I reminded myself that patience is also work, and sometimes the hardest kind. I chose not to harden my heart or speak in frustration. I chose to keep showing up, to keep doing what was right, even when it felt unseen. That choice cost me rest. It cost me ease, but I held to it, believing that closed doors do not always mean the end. Sometimes they mean something unseen is being revealed. Every night, when the noise of the day finally settled, I knelt beside my bed to pray. I did not use long or clever words. I spoke plainly, the way a tired child speaks to a father. I asked God one simple thing. If I was wrong, show me my fault clearly. If I was right, defend my name in your time. During the day, the urge to speak up pressed hard against my chest. Sharp words formed in my mouth, ready to cut through the silence. I imagined explaining myself, listing facts, correcting every lie. But each time I stopped. I swallowed the words and chose restraint. I reminded myself that anger can feel powerful, but it often leaves damage behind. Faith did not come easily in those moments. Fear whispered that silence would look like guilt. Pride urged me to protect myself. Still, I chose faith over fear. I believe that shouting truth does not always make it louder. Sometimes it only makes the room noisier. Prayer became my anchor. It kept my heart steady when my thoughts raced. It reminded me that my worth was not decided by whispers or closed doors. Night after night, I rose from prayer with no new answers, but with enough peace to face another day. I held on to one belief with both hands. Truth does not need shouting. It only needs time. While I prayed in silence, events moved without my knowledge. Bramwell requested a private meeting with Mr. Percival Huxley, the head of my department. The meeting was quiet and respectful, held behind a closed door. Bramwell did not accuse me. He did not raise his voice or make bold claims. Instead, he spoke softly, choosing words that sounded careful and concerned. He said he admired my skills, but worried about my character. He framed his doubts as protection for the organization. I fear he may be too ambitious, Bramwell said. The words were gentle, but they carried weight. He spoke as a friend, not a rival. He warned, not attacked. In that moment, envy wore the mask of wisdom. Doubt was dressed as care. Bramwell trusted that seeds planted quietly would grow without effort. He believed time would do the work for him. Mr. Huxley listened. He did not challenge Bramwell. He did not defend me either. The seed fell into waiting soil. The rumors tightened slowly, like a rope woven strand by strand. No single lie was strong enough to hold me. Each piece alone sounded reasonable, almost harmless, the kind of statement that could pass as concern rather than accusation. But when tied together, they formed something firm and restraining, wrapping around my name until movement felt difficult. It began with small shifts in tone, a word spoken softly in a hallway, a pause that lingered too long after my name was mentioned, a raised eyebrow during meetings when I offered an idea. Soon, stories traveled without clear owners. People repeated worries without knowing where they came from. I heard, they would say, but never from whom. Suspicion moved faster than truth, and it did not need proof to keep going. I felt trapped inside a story I had not written. Every attempt to step forward felt heavy, as if I were walking against a current no one else could see. I noticed how careful people became around me, how trust thinned without ever breaking openly. It was painful to watch my character questioned without a voice allowed in the room. Still, I refused to free myself by harming others. I would not expose private conversations. I would not reveal names or push blame to escape pressure. I knew I could have defended myself loudly, but doing so would have stained the very ground I stood on. I chose restraint when reaction would have been easier. Being bound by lies hurt deeply. It pressed against my peace and tested my patience. Yet I believed that freedom gained wrongly would cost me more in the end. I held on, trusting that ropes made of rumors cannot last forever when truth remains steady and uncut. After many restless nights, I made a choice and held it firmly. I decided that no matter how tight the pressure became, I would not fight lies with lies. I would not defend myself by destroying someone else's name. My hand would stay clean, even if it cost me time, comfort, or favor. I worked harder than before. I arrived early and left late. I checked my work twice, sometimes 3 times. I spoke kindly to those who had grown distant, even when their replies were short. I refused to let bitterness shape my tone or my actions. Waiting was the hardest part. Silence felt unfair. Each quiet day tempted me to act, to force clarity. But I reminded myself that peace earned through compromise is not peace at all. I wanted a clear conscience more than quick relief. Some nights, doubt knocked loudly. I wondered if I was being foolish, if strength should sound louder. Still, I chose patience. I believe that integrity speaks in ways noise never can. My peace mattered more than speed. I trusted that when the truth finally rose, it would rise whole, not wounded by my own wrongdoing. One ordinary morning, As I sorted through routine messages, an email appeared that stopped me. It was not addressed to me, yet it sat quietly in my inbox, as if it had chosen the wrong door. At first, I almost deleted it. Nothing unusual stood out. Then I noticed a familiar name. Mine. As I read further, another name appeared beneath it. Brambles. My heart slowed. The email carried a tone of urgency, meant for senior eyes only. I felt uneasy, aware that I was reading something not intended for me. Still, I sensed this was not an accident. I did not forward it. I did not respond. I only read carefully, feeling a strange mix of fear and calm. For the first time in weeks, the silence around me felt different, less heavy, more watchful. Attached to the email were detailed notes from meetings I had never attended. They were written with confidence, as if the writer had sat across the table from me, watched my expressions, and weighed my motives. The notes described my work ethic, my tone, and my intentions. Some statements were close enough to the truth to feel believable. Others were carefully twisted, bent just enough to suggest danger where there was none. As I read line by line, a quiet unease settled in my chest. The words were measured, never extreme. There was no anger in them, no open attack. That restraint made them convincing. Anyone reading them would assume balance, even fairness. Then I saw the source. Bramwell's words were there, signed and unmistakable. His language was calm, almost protective. He framed concern as responsibility and doubt as wisdom. He did not call me dishonest. He simply questioned my ambition, my loyalty, my pace. It was subtle. It was effective. My hands trembled as understanding settled in. The rumors now had a voice. The silence finally had shape. This was not confusion. It was design. I closed the file and sat still for a long time. I did not feel anger rise in me. I felt sorrow, deep and heavy. Memories of shared meals, shared dreams, and childhood laughter pressed against my heart. A promise made by the creek echoed in my mind, louder than the words on the screen. I understood then that betrayal does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers carefully, trusting others to carry the sound forward. Not long after the email surfaced, leadership began a quiet investigation. There were no announcements and no sudden changes in tone. Emails were traced carefully. Meeting notes were reviewed line by line. Past conversations were examined with new attention. I was not questioned at first. I continued my work as usual, aware that something was unfolding beyond my reach. I did not volunteer information. I did not point fingers. I waited. As the process moved forward, patterns began to emerge. Certain phrases appeared again and again. The same cautious wording surfaced in different contexts, written months apart. The repetition stood out to those trained to notice such things. Soon, one name appeared repeatedly in the records. It surfaced in meeting summaries, private emails, and informal notes. Each appearance added weight to the last. It was not mine. I watched as the truth rose on its own strength. No effort from me pushed it forward. No explanation from my mouth shaped its path. The evidence stood steady and undeniable, speaking without emotion. When I was finally called into a board meeting, the room felt heavy with expectation. Faces were serious. Files were prepared. I felt the moment settle around me. I did not defend myself. I did not argue my innocence. I entered that room with peace, trusting that truth, once uncovered, does not need help to stand. The call to the board meeting came without warning. No explanation followed it. Just a date, a time, and a room number. My name stood alone on the line, and when I read it, my chest tightened. This was the moment rumors prepare you for, even when you are innocent. The night before, I slept little. I did not rehearse speeches or collect defenses. I reviewed my work once more, slowly and carefully, not to argue, but to remind myself that I had walked clean. That knowledge steadied me. On the morning of the meeting, the building felt quieter than usual. The hallway leading to the boardroom seemed longer, each step echoing my thoughts. When I reached the door, I paused. I prayed, not for escape, not for favor, but for truth to stand without distortion. Inside, the room was formal and still. Board members sat spaced apart, faces neutral, files arranged neatly before them. Screens weighted dark. No one smiled. No one frowned. I greeted them respectfully and took my seat. Fear hovered, but it did not rule me. I realized then that innocence brings a quiet strength. I had nothing to hide and nothing to protect with force. When questions came, I answered plainly. I did not interrupt. I did not accuse. I did not guess. I entered that room without defense because defense assumes attack. I entered with peace, trusting that truth would speak louder than fear. The day truth walked in, it did not announce itself loudly. There was no raised voice or sudden confession. Instead, records were opened one file at a time. Emails were traced carefully, not just for words, but for patterns. Timelines were laid out side by side, showing what happened, when it happened, and who was present. I sat quietly as the process unfolded. Screens glowed with long threads of communication. Notes from meetings were read aloud. Dates were checked and rechecked. Each detail mattered. I felt exposed, yet strangely calm. As the review deepened, a clear picture began to form. My work stood clean. Every assignment matched its record. Every deadline was met. There were no hidden edits, no secret messages, no private warnings. Then the contrast appeared. Statements about me did not align with the evidence. Claims fell apart when placed next to facts. The lies did not collapse all at once. They weakened slowly, losing strength with each comparison. No one looked at me in accusation anymore. Eyes moved to documents, then to one another. The truth had entered the room, not with noise, but with weight. When the final record was read, the room grew quiet. Not the confused silence from before, but a heavy, thoughtful stillness. No one spoke. Even the air seemed to pause. I felt my heart slow. A warmth settled in my chest, steady and calm. I knew that feeling. It was the same peace I felt during late-night prayers. I felt God steady my heart. For weeks, I had carried questions and unseen burdens. In that quiet room, many of them lifted. I did not smile. I did not celebrate. I only breathed. Light had entered a dark space, not to shame, but to reveal. I understood then that truth does not rush. It waits until it can stand without support. Even as clarity began to form around me, I made a firm decision to remain restrained. The truth was slowly taking shape, and with it came opportunities to speak, to explain, to defend myself openly. I chose not to take them. I did not speak against Bramwell. I did not add words that might increase the weight of his fall. I even refused chances to describe how deeply I had been hurt, though those chances were offered quietly and more than once. Part of me wanted to speak. Justice often invites commentary, and silence can feel like surrender. I imagined explaining the sleepless nights, the doubt, the way trust had cracked without warning. The words were ready. Still, I held them back. I believed that revenge, even when dressed as explanation, would stain the very victory unfolding before me. I reminded myself that facts do not exaggerate. They do not carry anger or memory. They do not need emotion to strengthen them. Facts simply stand, unchanged by tone or feeling. So I let them stand alone. Waiting without revenge was not easy. It required discipline that cut deeper than confrontation. It asked me to trust that what was true did not need my voice raised in defense. Each quiet moment felt like placing my case in stronger hands than my own. I chose restraint not because I was weak, but because I wanted to remain whole. I trusted that truth, once uncovered, would survive without my anger feeding it. The investigation did not end with my name being cleared. Once the process began, it widened carefully beyond my department. Compliance teams opened more records, not in haste, but with purpose. Files were compared across timelines and offices. What first appeared isolated began to form a larger picture. Emails were placed side by side. Language matched language. The same careful tone appeared again and again, calm and measured, never extreme. The repetition mattered. It showed intent. It showed habit. What once looked like concern now revealed a pattern of quiet interference. The trail stretched beyond one organization. Private warnings, gentle suggestions, and planted doubts appeared across several institutions. Each record confirmed the next. Together, they formed a path that could not be ignored or explained away. As the findings were read aloud, I understood something clearly. God had spoken through records and systems, not emotion. Justice had arrived without my interference, without my anger, without my defense. The truth had used order and process as its voice. My name was cleared fully, not with hesitation, but with certainty. Apologies followed, one by one. Some were brief. Others carried weight. I accepted them quietly. In that moment, I knew waiting had not been wasted. Integrity had not delayed justice. It had prepared the ground for it. Vindication did not arrive with noise or celebration. It came quietly, wrapped in careful language and formal calm. I was called back into the conference room where weeks earlier my name had been questioned. This time, the atmosphere was different. The tension had thinned. Faces were steady. They told me every allegation had been reviewed, every claim traced. Nothing stood against me. My work was clean. My record was intact. The burden I had carried for so long began to loosen its grip. Apologies followed. Some were spoken with trembling honesty. Others came later through emails, measured and polite. I accepted them all without bitterness. I understood now how quickly doubt spreads when silence walks ahead of truth. I did not replay my pain for anyone. I did not list sleepless nights or lonely mornings. Vindication did not need decoration. It simply needed truth. As I stepped out of the room, I felt lighter. God had defended me in ways I could not have planned. I breathed freely again. I assumed the matter would end there. Clearance, closure, return to routine. But leadership asked me to stay. They spoke about my conduct, how I had remained steady under pressure, how I had refused to speak ill of anyone, how I had worked harder when it would have been easier to withdraw. Then came the words I did not expect. I was offered a promotion. They said integrity mattered more than speed, more than talent. They trusted my character. With the new role came greater responsibility and visibility. I accepted quietly, with gratitude, not pride. I did not announce it widely. I thanked God privately. I remembered how close I had come to speaking out of pain. I remembered choosing silence. Promotion had replaced shame. Trust had returned stronger than before. Bramwell came to see me days later. He did not call ahead. He did not announce himself. When I opened the door and saw him standing there, I almost did not recognize him. He looked smaller somehow, as if the weight he carried had bent his shoulders inward. The confidence that once filled his voice was gone. We sat across from each other in silence for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice shook. The words did not come easily. They broke apart, then returned, heavier than before. He confessed everything. He spoke of envy that had grown quietly over years, never addressed, never confessed. He said watching me rise felt like losing ground, like standing still while someone else moved forward. He admitted that the 2 months between our births had always mattered more to him than he ever let on. In his heart, he believed he should always be ahead. When he wasn't, fear took root. I was afraid of being left behind, he said, tears filling his eyes. He did not excuse himself. He did not blame circumstances. He only spoke the truth at last. I listened without interruption. I did not correct him. I did not accuse him. I let the confession finish its work. When he was done, the room felt lighter. I told him I forgave him. Not because the pain was small, it wasn't, but because my heart was no longer chained to it. Forgiveness felt like freedom. The consequences came quietly, but they were final. Compliance reports followed Bramwell beyond North Shore Meridian Group. His actions were documented, verified, and shared through formal channels. His name was flagged across all major U.S. banks. Doors did not slam. They simply closed, one after another, without appeal. There was no public spectacle, no celebration, just a clear ending. We did not walk the same path again. Our childhood streets, shared dreams, and old promises belonged to another season. I did not chase him for explanations, and he did not ask for more forgiveness. Some separations do not need words. They need acceptance. I moved forward with humility. The promotion remained, but it no longer felt like a reward. It felt like responsibility. The lessons I carried were shaped by fire, about trust, patience, and the cost of quiet integrity. I did not celebrate Bramwell's fall. I did not speak of it to others. I prayed he would find a better road, one not built on comparison or fear. God had defended me without my hands becoming dirty. He had spoken without my voice being raised. That was enough.